You are listening to the Techie Leadership Show with Bogdan and Andrei. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Techie Leadership Show. Today we have Mihai Draghici, who is the founder and CEO of Pay by Face. Mihai Draghici is a serial entrepreneur with almost 20 years of experience turning ideas into products and launching startups in several countries, including Romania, USA, Canada, Mexico, and India. He has founded over 25 companies that range from sole proprietorship in smaller local markets to several limited liability partnerships and corporations doing business around the world. He has 2 provisional patents on proprietary technology for a mobile dispatching terminal used in taxis, a lottery gaming system for non-banked markets, and 1 non-provisional application submitted for a luggage tracking device. Oh, I hope that's as good as it sounds, because I hate it when I lose my luggage. I hate it. He also owns a registered trademark, Pay by Face, a biometric payment platform. When asked to give details about Mihai, Sarah Garrison, Senior Vice President of the Federal Reserve Bank of San Francisco, had this to say, quote, Mr. Draghici is an entrepreneur and has worked on a number of innovations. His ideas are relevant and timely, and his orientation is towards solving problems. He shows great initiative and is always willing to make the extra effort as required. Mr. Draghici has huge growth potential in leadership and management, architecture, and IT development. He is also well-versed in modernization of operations and performance scalability planning. Hello, Mihai, and welcome to the show.
Welcome to the show.
Hi, guys. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the introduction. And yeah, it's been quite a journey so far, but I feel like I'm just getting started.
Just getting started.
Just
awesome.
Getting started. So yeah.
Do you want to add anything else about yourself?
Well, I can't speak for Sarah. She's an amazing woman, and I worked for her for several years in America at a company called Vertifor, and I learned a lot. She was like mother, my corporate mother. So I had a lot of mentorship and advice from her extensive knowledge in leading organizations and building billion-dollar companies, in addition to being the former senior vice president at Visa. I kind of got a lot of the things that concepts that I'm using to grow Pay by Face kind of came from the Seattle Dubai 18-hour flight on Emirates, sitting with Sarah to my right, and a gentleman named Chito Mansala, who was the chief system architect of Visa, to my left. Whoa. Drinking whiskey on an 18-hour flight to Dubai. What are you going to talk about? I don't know. Let's talk about building a better Visa. Right? Yeah. So quite interesting experiences that I've been through the past 20 years. Building companies all over the world and working, in enterprise engineering. Very challenging projects where basically, all the managers would run away except me, and I'd be like, okay, what's the most difficult problem that this company has, and those are the projects I would be put at. So I've been breaking down walls and turning no's into yeses for the last 20 years.
So never shying away from difficulty and just going where.
Yeah, go where no man has gone before.
Yeah, punching above your weight. That's good. That's good. Adversity always builds character and builds our experience and our drive to do more, better, faster, stronger. Oh my God, I'm starting to sound like Kanye.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. And perseverance. I mean, the more you go through it, everyone's going to say no, or you do it, try to sway you in a different direction, or think they know how to do it better, or you have days where you're just like, I don't even know what I'm doing, but you keep going. And, eventually if you believe in it good enough and you have the skills, to solve those problems, the last one standing is the unicorn.
Yeah.
True that.
And you're working on it.
I'm working on it, yeah. So just a quick history, I left Romania when I was like 4 or 5, and communist times, and we got out of the country a little bit early, and then this was in '85. And I had lived in the States, and then about 3 years ago, I was living on a sailboat in Seattle. I was building a winery in Washington State, and I was just kind of fed up with America. I was like bored. I'd done so many startups, I'd worked so many places. I was like, what else is there to do? Okay, let's sell another house, let's buy another house, let's whatever. It was kind of boring. And I hadn't been back to Europe for about 25 years, just kind of being in career mode. I, just never got to it. And my grandma turned 89 3 years ago, and my mom was like, "Why don't you go see Grandma in Bucharest? Maybe you'll see something new. Maybe you'll get some more ideas." And so that's what I did. I got on a plane and went to Bucharest 3 years ago, and within the first week, I was like, "Oh man, this is the wild, wild east." Like there's gold in the hills.
Are there hills?
Yeah, exactly. So I was like, everyone's leaving Romania, well, everyone's running that way. I'm going to come this way. And clearly it was, with my experience and knowledge, it was just the right time at the right place, and I took full advantage of that. So I pretty much within the first month, I launched about 12 startups. I thought of every startup I could possibly think of that I've done in my life, and I relaunched it in Bucharest, all of them at the same time. Formed Cereales, bought like 30 domain names, went to networking events and just started go. And after the first year, about 6 of them survived. And after the second year, 2 of them survived. So, the ratio of being an entrepreneur and starting a company, like we all know, it's not easy and mostly all fail. But, I have a process now in place. I have sort of the way I build a company where it gives me a little bit better chances. So out of those 12 or so ideas, after 2.5 years, 2 of them were survivors, and one of them is Pay by Face. And the other one is MedicPad. And clearly both of them, given the COVID situation that the whole world has gone through, medical solutions and biometric hands-free payment solutions clearly are the most applicable solutions in our marketplace right now. So it kind of, it shows that, market fit, problem solution fit, and all the sort of guidelines that all these accelerators and incubators worldwide, tell you have to run through a certain process. It's showing that the process does work, and if you stick to it, it can give you better chances.
Yeah. And you couldn't have picked a better time to come back to Romania. It's true, 15 years ago, you might have gotten more bang for your buck, or you might have been able to import new things, new mentalities, be the true frontier explorer. But nowadays, pretty much Romania caught up. There, you don't feel as many differences as in the past, but still you can apply good techniques that work in other markets, Western markets, and for sure you can apply them here because same type of living, pay by card, go by taxi, work in glass towers.
Yeah,
same people.
Yeah, there's definitely some, there's definitely some challenges. It's not one for one carbon copy of America. And it's like the cultural differences, just the appetite for risk, and investments and that sort of ROI, like how long are you willing to wait for your investment to come back? Those mathematical formulas are not the same. And so, I was planning on failure. I was planning on just, using 2 years of savings and everything to just give it a shot and see what happens. But I didn't expect anything to happen. I just wanted to do it. And lucky for me, actually COVID and what happened accelerated the adoption of these last 2 standing startups. And, now we're sort of crossed that, death valley that they say, before your first revenue.
Yeah.
You're walking through the desert, like without water, chewing on glass the whole time, no idea if you're going to survive. That's kind of the feeling of startups. And, it just happened to actually be very good for us, the pandemic in a business sense, and just, the change that's happening in behavior and contactless payments and, digital currency and all that stuff, and then obviously medical technology like robots and thermal scanning and all that things. So digital transformation, robotic process automation like UiPath is clearly leading the global strategy on RPA. These sort of technologies, using technology to help humans be safer, secure, trust, all these elements are important. And I think people are starting to finally catch on that robots are not just like in Hollywood Terminator. They're actually they're
more like Wall-E.
They're more like Wall-E, yeah. And so I think there's a really bright future if we can educate and create solutions that actually fulfill and solve problems.
Yeah, that is true. And Mihai, with your vast experience, I'm really curious about your stories. And we can even pick, do you want to start with the success story or the failure story? Which one would make for a great progression?
Well, success is definitely a great topic. It's motivating and encouraging to other entrepreneurs, but success is not easy to attain. So sometimes I really like to talk about failures because I've had a lot of failures. I've gone through really crazy failures, co-founder failures, lawsuits, losing all the money, like firing employees, having no money left in the accounts, leaving my family, even losing, a relationship with my daughter at one point because I wanted to build a startup so bad. And, there's a lot of decisions that you make as an entrepreneur and a founder that sometimes it's almost like absurd, like how do you make that decision? And so sometimes it's because it's not about me, it has nothing to do with me. It has to do with building something bigger than me, right? Building something that solves problems for not just me and my wife or whatever. It's solving problems for a lot of people. And so it goes beyond the sacrifices I have to make to attain that goal. And sometimes the decisions you have to make to attain those goals are just ridiculous. Like nobody in their right mind would make them. And I've learned many times over building so many startups worldwide that there comes those days where you walk up right to the edge of a cliff, in a abstract manner, but you're literally standing right on a cliff, and your toes are right off the edge, and you have to keep your composure. You got to stand there like the Red Bull guys, that are about to jump off a cliff and act like a flying squirrel, then they stand there like they've done it all day long. Like I'd be freaking out if I had to even just look at that guy. Right. And so that sometimes it's kind of like that when you're building a company from the ground up. You have these moments where you're like, I don't even know if tomorrow we'll still be alive. Like it's either today or that's it. There's been several moments in the last 20 years where it's literally been right on the edge of a cliff, and have the faith and belief that, you did everything you possibly could. And the next day it's literally I don't know if I'm allowed to cuss, but it's a fucking miracle. And so those are the defining moments that, really create some like whys in your path of life. Where you could have, at any moment, it could have taken you a totally different direction, but because you stood strong and you really believed in what you're doing, regardless of what everybody told you, it totally changes the rest of the future. And, every time you have those crossroads, if you pick the right side, then good things can happen.
And, for out of curiosity, is it usually for better, the change, and the fact that you looked into abyss and didn't blink?
Yes, it's for better. Back. Yes, it's definitely for better. I mean, those moments are not going to be for worse because you try to avoid the worse ones. You get to those moments because you really believe it should be for the better, and sometimes the result is out of your control, and you're just sitting there, high anxiety and stressed out, and it's like, oh my God, why can't I do anything to control the situation? but those usually are the moments where it's for the better. And believing and having faith in whether it's a technology startup or your application, or you just launched to production and you're like, God, I hope this works. Or it doesn't necessarily have to be like financial or people. It could be any sort of pivotal moment, milestone that you have to achieve in your startup to be able to get to the next level. When you get to those pivotal moments, it's sort of do or die. And it's usually for better. It's about living on, right? And living the next day and getting back up and keep going. So those moments, if it's meant to be, right? Sort of, if it's meant to be and there's a little luck, it's revolutionary. And that's when the breakthrough innovation happens. Like, for example, at Pay by Face, right? Let me give you a concrete example. So I started Pay by Face like 3 years ago. I was thinking, gosh, I just got back to Romania. I just had lunch at this restaurant, and the lady comes back and says, how would you like to pay, cash or card? And I was like, what do you mean, how do I want to pay, cash or card? I could pay whatever I want. I have maybe I don't know. I don't care how I pay. Why is it such a problem, right? And then she came back with that little POS, and the thing was out of batteries, and then it ran out of paper, and it took me almost half an hour to pay for my lunch. And so I was like, God, there's got to be a better way, there's got to be a better way. And so looking back, I was like, gosh, maybe we could just pay by face. Right? Because I don't need my wallet. You don't leave home without your face.
Yeah.
Right? And it took me 2 years. I pitched to all the banks. I went to fintech events. I did all this, and I always got a no. Everybody was like, no. I don't need to pay by face. I'll pay by NFC. I'll pay by Apple Pay. I'll pay by all these other things. I'll pay by cash. And everybody kept saying no, and, good luck, like, best of luck. And I didn't stop. And we kept building it and building it and building it until the moment where I actually had the apps ready now. And I had a defining moment where we had to actually integrate into the payment gateway to actually facilitate the actual payment. Right? Because Pay by Face isn't going to be anything without the actual payment. You've got to pay. So I had the face part. I could pick people based on face recognition, but I didn't really have it was just on PowerPoint, like, in theory, on the diagram, it should work, but it came time to where we actually had to integrate into the gateway. And it's never been done like this. It was sort of a very unique integration. And the day that, the lights came on and the integration worked, and I was actually able to, scan my face and automatically deduct payment from my card on file, that was huge. We were like, it's real, it just became real. And really, if that wouldn't have worked, 2 years of work would have gone down the drain, because there was no turning back or alternative solution or whatever. This had to work.
Yeah.
Right. And as soon as we hit that moment, it was just like, okay, the seed is starting to show a little leaf coming out of the ground. Like, we have a tree.
Yeah. It's alive.
It's alive. Yeah.
Well, you did have the experience with the other startups that dwindled, faded, and went out of existence in the same period that this one survived. So
yeah, and those other startups, had all kinds of failures, like bad co-founders. The investment wasn't fully vested by the investors. I don't know, the market fit just wasn't right. I didn't have time to build the app. There was too much bugs. There's all these reasons why, a company doesn't go to the next level and get to those milestones where, have a pivotal moment, or you just don't have the time, or you caught COVID and you were in the hospital for a month. There's so many reasons why things should not go as planned. And all of those reasons, all those experiences, because I went through so many, these failures, I know how to avoid them. So now I know the signs, when I'm talking to a potential co-founder and, there's a certain interaction there, I know, that if there's certain things that you're thinking about as a potential co-founder and you're acting that way, I'm probably not going to pick you, just like you go interview for a job. If you don't fit the role, you're not going to get hired. And so that's all based on experience and pattern recognition, and having a process and you due diligence and all that stuff, which, when I was first getting started, I just put an ad on Craigslist and I was like, first come, first serve. I don't care. I'll figure it out later. Right. And it always turned into problems or stress or whatever. So now, now I sort of take a little bit more time to do my due diligence, put the experience that I know to avoid those problems and reduce the risk.
Sift through the wreckage, so to say.
Yeah, the potential wreckage.
Yeah.
But it's awesome that you're using failure as a teacher, and that's something that we try to convey, like with all these failure stories, because they start as a failure and then they turn it as a massive learning experience and it helps the person grow. So, and many people view failure as something that should be avoided. Actually, what I've seen is the most successful people are the ones that go and run with their arms open to failure and try to hug it as often as possible. Of course, you don't have to be super stupid
not too crazy.
Don't be too crazy. Don't take risks that's like believing you can fly when you jump off of a really tall building or stuff like that. But
it's
something
calculated.
that seems plausible. Yes, calculated. It's plausible, and there are signs that it's possible. Yeah, go for it. See if it's true or not.
You never know what to expect. Like I had a discussion with somebody when I told him that I'm launching this podcast with the interview style, and I told him, I said, okay, what format? And I told him, listen, it's about leadership, and I have the same 7 questions. And same 7 questions, isn't that going to be boring? He says, no, because I'm not going to have the same guest, and each person is different, will have different answers. Yeah. And your answer right now, it was even more different, because the first what is the biggest leadership success story and fail story, rather than going in steps, you basically gave me a medley.
Right.
And I wanted to take this chance to accentuate to the listeners what Mihai is telling you is like the difference between success and failure isn't meters, it's inches.
Yeah. Okay. Sometimes it's seconds.
Yeah. So that's why.
I mean, look at Elon Musk. That story has this blueprint all over it. If he had one last shot, and it's just like cross your fingers.
Yeah. Otherwise, it would have been Elon who?
Elon who? Yeah, Elon who?
Yeah, top CTO at that company. Nice.
Exactly. So yeah. Absolutely. And it's the team. I mean, it's not definitely just me. Clearly I'm the visionary and the motivator, and I have to do the last call, right? Which do we go left or right? But there's a huge amount of effort from all my team, that lead up to those moments. So there's no way I could do this stuff alone. I mean, I have teams on both companies that take care of all the areas, that need to be taken care of, from business, from finance, from legal, accounting, marketing, all of it. So, I'm actually co-founder at Tech Ventures Incubator in Bucharest. We have our 3rd cohort of startups right now active, where we're mentoring and advising, I think there's probably like 10 or 12 startups in this cohort. So, I'm also doing that every Tuesday night and mentoring, first-time founders and second-time founders and, maybe people that are still at the corporate, but they're doing, trying to get into starting a business. And they come from a whole bunch of corporate experience that they're trying to spin off into a product, because the corporate product doesn't solve all the challenges. So they think they can do it better, right? And launch a company to compete, right? But there's all these, which is great. I mean, it's initiative, right? It's innovation. This is like innovation at its finest. But it's also the courage and the confidence and your ability to self-manage yourself. Because if you've always had a manager telling you what to do, and then you want to go start a company where you're managing your own time, and now we're at home, you got to manage your kids and your wife and your life and everything at the same time. At least before you were at the office and you were isolated, but now you're like kind of anywhere. It's even harder to self-manage. So there's a whole bunch of skills, as an entrepreneur and an innovator that that you don't get taught in school, and you don't get taught by working for other people technically, unless it's a culture at your company, to be innovative and take risks and figure out what happens when you fail and how do you pivot and how do you do all that. But it's quite an extensive sort of skill set that you have to be very good at to lead something, especially in disruptive innovation. Because there's so many problems you have to solve. You can't just be really good at marketing, and right, you have to be really good at marketing. You have to be really good at writing contracts. You have to be really good at managing people. You have to be really good at figuring out, technology stack and architecture, so you don't scale, where now your company fails because you didn't architect scale. There's so many aspects that you have to be very good at, all of them at the same time, as a sort of a leader and a CEO.
Yeah, well, I want to interject there.
Sure.
It's 100% true what you said, but it's more on the lines of you have to be good enough to recognize somebody who is very good at doing this, because you never do it all alone. As the CEO, you have. Did we drop?
You're back.
As the
Yeah, yeah, we're back.
Sorry.
Yeah,
back.
You have to be good enough in every, like, contracting and managing, and good enough as to recognize somebody that you can bring onto the team that can do the best in that one, and you can always step in if necessary, but don't do it all alone.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. I should have put it a little more into context. You have to know when someone's bullshitting you. So
that's it.
Yeah. So I had a really interesting one of my advice. I don't remember who it was. Maybe it was Sarah, but she said, school, all school is to know if someone's bullshitting you or not. If you boil it down, I mean, clearly you get skills, but yeah, I mean, to be a leader, you have to know if someone is telling you something that's possible or something that's not, because if you have to make a decision on which way to go, you kind of have to know, oh yeah, let's go that way because I know what you're talking about, right? Or if you're just going to let someone tell you what to do, you have no idea to validate their information. You don't know what to expect. In engineering, you don't do that in engineering. That's called, assumptions. And if you build something on assumptions, it's gonna be a problem.
You're gonna have a bad. Even if you're successful, it's gonna be a problem, because then you end up on all major media publications. Oh my God, how did we let this happen? Exactly. I'm not going to give any particulars. Right. Maybe some blood testing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Right on.
Yeah. And Mihai, summing up, like, what your experience, especially working with young entrepreneurs, doing so many startups and working like for Visa, which is a huge corporation, like, what would be your leadership philosophy?
So it's empowerment. As a leader, you have to empower your team. You have to make them feel confident and give them the skills and the sort of clear the runway so that they can take off. I've led teams, and again, I have to go back to Sarah. Sorry, it's just there's so many lessons learned from her. But I got put on a team. It was 30 engineers. 20 of them were in India, and 10 of them were sort of in Seattle. And it was the worst performing engineering team at the company. They missed all their milestones. Their burn rate was horrible. They didn't get anything done. It was just bad. All the managers would churn every 2-3 weeks, 2 months max. Nobody wanted that job. And I was like, I'll take it. Let's go figure it out. Yeah, let's go figure it out. And the first, if you're going to be a leader, you have to go know your team. Go know who works with you. Go know them not like you don't have to go to their house and meet their family, but you have to kind of know what their personality is, what drives them, what motivates them, who their friends are, in the company, who do they hang out with, why do they come late in the morning, why do they leave late, everything about that person, that sort of, because they're involved, and you have to know why they're involved, and are they doing it just for the paycheck? Are they doing it because they want to be a part of a product that gets released? What's their motivation? And so my first basically my first 6 months in that group, all I did was, meet all of them. I would sit with them during any time I had. I would sit with them, and code with them and help them, but at the same time, I was sort of doing reconnaissance, and documenting everything. Right. So I basically created like the new developer onboarding guidebook, so that if any one of them left, I had a book, about everything they did. And I basically wrote that book by hanging out with them. And so that was the first step, is really understand. It's knowledge gather, due diligence, right? Just like when you raise a fund, the first step is due diligence. They got to know who you are. And even before you get to due diligence, you got to build a relationship. Let's have some pitches. Let's go to dinner. Let's do a bunch of Zoom calls. It feels like it goes on forever, months and months. Like, you're building a marriage. And then by the time, everyone's comfortable with each other, then you start working together. That only then do you actually start working together, right? Up until that point, it's just basically my boss is telling me what to do. And so it took me a while to basically start working together with them, not just being their boss. And all the previous managers were always just the boss, right? And so they were never going beyond the status quo. And so I got on a plane and I flew to India, and I lived in Hyderabad for 3 months with these guys. I went to lunch with them, like we went out partying. I was basically one of them, right? And they observed that. And so I basically, I wasn't, there as a boss. I was there as a friend, so to speak, but also as sort of, I had to solve their problems, right? If one of them had, a technical problem, I was responsible for my team to go fix that problem, whether it's because of product or, the graphic designers, did a mock-up that completely doesn't work. It was my responsibility to take care of my team. And so I showed them that, look, tell me your problems. Tell me that you're struggling. I don't know. You need a new laptop. I don't care what it is. Tell me what your problem is to make your life easier, to do your job easier, to solve your problems faster, and give that problem to me, right? And I'll go clear the runway. I'll make sure that runway is sparkling clean so that when you get ready to, throttle up, you don't have to worry about, a nail popping your tire, right?
Yeah.
And that's leadership. I had a couple really great leaders where, that I learned from who didn't really, tell me how to do my job. They basically made the roadmap attainable, right? Because they took down barriers. They, reorganized, politics in the organization. They, I don't know, added more budget or whatever. It gave me vacation when I was exhausted. They helped me be more sort of motivated, right, and enthusiastic about my job. And those are some of the key aspects. It's the human element, right? It's the human management element that is really important to being a leader. You have to know who people are. You have to be a person. And sometimes I feel like we sort of leave that, at home or whatever. We do that only with our friends, and it's like, the boss at work, and you're the boss, and you have things to meet and blah blah blah. Some people don't really care about personal problems. So I think it's harder to be a leader if you don't really, relate to your team and understand their challenges and struggles and things like that. Not just from the job role, but just from a life perspective, right? That's probably my number one rule book. And then I think, sort of giving them growth opportunity, right? So that it's not just, okay, I'm going to be hired as a senior engineer and I'm just going to be senior engineer forever. Some senior engineers, that's all they want. They don't really care advancement. I just want to, put out fires and do greenfield development. That's fine. But there, you have to know who your team is and understand, financially, right? Financially and career-wise, what do they want and where do they want to go, so that you can help them grow in that role, right? And this doesn't necessarily mean, single contributors or whatever. It can also be executive level, C-level, co-founder level. Like, why do you want to be co-founder? Do you want to just contribute? Do you want to be CTO? Right? Do you want to build the product and get, 40% equity and then, sell it and go do something else? Or do you want to be CTO and build a team and build a, technology company and have the whole infrastructure under you and, leading a team of 300 engineers worldwide? Like, what are your motivations? What are your growth factors? as an individual or as a, C-level executive, managerial, or all that stuff. So kind of knowing the future of that person too, not just their current state, but how do they see themselves in the future in that role, so that you can sort of help them get there, right? Even if it means that they want to be you at some point, right? Like, I had 2 senior engineers on that team under Sarah that were just battling to be my spot, right? I mean, they wanted, that was their motivation, was to be Mike. And I had no problem with that. I wasn't scared of that. I was like, God, I hope you can be me, because that means I can go do something else.
Yeah.
You're gonna push me up.
Yeah, you're gonna push me up, or push me to the side, or push me to go do what I want to do, right? I'm doing this because I got told to do it, right? And I love it, but I hope that one day someone can do my role too. And so that's another really important thing about leadership, is you can't be stubborn and jealous and all those negative feelings, because you're going to hinder growth and you're going to ultimately hurt the company. So you have to be very open to the fact that people can be better than you, and you're just because you're whatever, a leader on top of the pyramid or whatever you call it, doesn't mean you're the best. Someday someone's going to come by and be better than you, and you have to be able to appreciate and respect that and help that person elevate, regardless of what happens to you. Right. And so that's really hard. That's one of the hardest lessons to do as a manager or leader, is sort of letting go of that role so that someone else can grow because of it. And that probably took me, I don't know, maybe 10 years to figure out. That was probably one of the hardest lessons to learn, is delegate, right? The delegate.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
like the delegate. It's hard. It's really hard because you don't trust.
It's very hard.
It's like, I want it done right, I have to do it right. That was like my mentality for the first 10 years of my career. I do it right. But then it was like, okay, no, I don't have to do it right. I can get other people to do it and help them achieve their goals. And that's when things really started opening up.
Yeah. No, it's a lot of people dream about being the boss, and I can be the boss and boss people around. Just trust me, delegating stuff to other people is really hard. It's something that you either start really young and understand the process behind it and get experience. Like 10 years experience might sound a lot, it's not.
Yep.
I noticed this around other founding leaders, CTOs, or people in place of having teammates and employees. They basically said about around the same thing. And another thing that you mentioned before, that getting to know your team, I can almost hear the thoughts of introverts saying like, well, one day they're going to be robots and you won't need to know them, which is the wrong. It's so wrong. Even if you have robots, you will still need to read the documentation to understand the limitations of the robots. So this is
know them.
Unavoidable no matter what you do.
Yep.
If you're working with something, you have to know what makes it tick, how it works. If you're a lumberjack chopping down trees, you have to know everything about your axe there is to know, and then everything about your tree. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Unavoidable.
Yeah.
And I already feel like you answered a big chunk of the top leader tips you have for aspiring leaders, or do you have some other tips?
Be more open to risk taking. I think a lot of companies, corporate, they're very risk adverse, and clearly, I mean, that's okay, especially in a financial situation that we are in. Risk has been chopped away. Like, we're taking zero risk, no investments, no risk, no hires, no nothing. Just turn it all off, and let's hope the lights still come on. Like that is probably the fight or flight. It's like, okay, let's fly away and hide from our problems. And I think, I want more leadership to be more not flight, but fight. Like, face your problem, look it straight in the face, and be mature about it, and really sit down and try to solve it, not just, put a Band-Aid on and don't understand why you got hurt in the first place. So it's more, instead of playing nurse, you got to play doctor, right? And really understand the root cause, troubleshoot and really solve the problem at the core, not just, give you headache medicine and send you back home, because you're going to come back the next day with another headache. And then, and it's going to get worse and worse. And that's the same sort of pattern that good leaders can't just, give you medication and send you home. They got to really understand the problems and solve them so that those mistakes aren't made a second time. right? Because that just means wasted money, wasted time, wasted resources, and that's I think that's bad management.
Regarding risk, like you manage, you want people to be more risky. I want to add something for people to listen. Risking stuff doesn't always imply risking money, which is it's a pitfall that a lot of people face.
Yeah.
You can risk or be more risky with personal stuff or perceived personal stuff, like picking up the phone and maybe cold calling or doing a sales can imply for an introvert risking face.
Yes.
He perceived that as valuable. Well, he if it doesn't go the way he wants, he loses nothing. It's only perceived risk. But still, the mentality behind doing that kind of risk can help him when he has to put his money where his mouth is.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, risk is definitely defined, by everybody is different definition of risk. But just in general, like maybe taking chances, sort of thing.
That's it.
Taking some chances, clearly you're going to be risking something, whether it's time or money or your person or your reputation. I don't know what it is, right? You're going to be there's a trade-off by taking a chance because you don't know the outcome. But it's not necessarily gambling. I don't say go out and gamble your life away, right? Yeah. But it's just doing something new and not being scared of it, right? Not being scared that you may not succeed at first. It's okay. Like we all learned to freaking crawl before we walked. Nobody's crying about that, So it's just the way it goes. You got to go out, fall a little bit, but just get up. Know that you can get up. It's okay. Sometimes you'll fall and you'll really hurt yourself because, it was a big fall, but you can still get up and you can still sort of learn from how you fell and try not to fall again.
And that brings like a great topic because when we grow up, we have this idea, we start something, we want to be like this, instantaneously good at it. Yeah. And we always give everybody crawls before they walk, but you crawl for a long time. Oh yeah. And it takes even longer to learn how to walk. You stumble and think. So, but I don't know what happens. Like it's like we see babies, we had our own experience, but we forget and we expect I'm going to do this and I'm going to be great starting the first day. My first try is going to be a success. It's like a baby saying tomorrow I'm going to walk.
Bike. I'm going to go get the bike.
Yeah, I'm going to get the bike. I'm going to run and all this stuff. No, it takes time. So budget for it.
Yeah, and then really important, don't be afraid to ask for help. I think that's really, really important. So, because it's not going to look bad if you go ask for help. It's actually going to look much better on you if you go ask for help instead of going out there and falling down when someone could have said, just don't go down that road because it's a bumpy road. Right? And then you go complain, gosh, I fell down 6 times because I took that road. And it's like, you could have just told me and saved a whole bunch of time. So it's really knowing when do you take that chance, but also when do you do the homework and you're okay asking other people, have you been down this road? Do you know how many times you'll fall? And knowing how to ask for help, that's really, really important. Especially if you're in a team, you got to ask for help. I played soccer, in high school and growing up. I love soccer. I love organized sports. I can make, comparisons between organized sports and corporate, America or whatever, any corporate business. There's so many similarities.
I heard saying this.
Yeah. And so, organized sports like soccer, I kind of, you can't win the game if it's just one, guy out there keeping the ball the whole time thinking he can beat the whole team like that. Maybe you'll do 1-2 goals, maybe if you're Messi, right? Or whatever. But that doesn't happen. There's thousands of soccer players out there. There's only one Messi and one, whatever. And so you have to ask for help. You have to use your team, and you have to know when to use your team and who's the right tool for the job, and understand that when you're not the right tool for the job and you're not the one that should be running when all you're good at is crawling, and you're not ready for running, go get the guy that's running already to go run. Right, and yes. Understand how to build a relationship with him so that he can run for you. So those are really important.
And plus, the other team, if you try to beat the whole team, the other team is going to notice, say, okay, our opponent is just one person, so disregard the rest of them, focus on that one.
Yeah.
And it makes it super hard for you to do anything.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. It's got to be well balanced.
Yeah. And Mihai, what is the book that had the most profound impact on you?
Can be from any topic, any field.
Yeah, definitely. So actually, I don't read. On the
Okay.
surprise. Because I'm a programmer and I code all day long. I don't want to sit and read books. It's just I'd rather go outside or do something else. I mean, I watch videos and things like that. I read a lot of articles on the news, but sitting down and reading books, I never really got into that, honestly.
Someone
Um,
recommended a documentary instead of a book.
yeah,
You
and
can go that way
probably,
too.
and even, yeah, documentaries have been great. There's a lot of Netflix documentaries on all kinds of stuff, like, the commercialization of drugs, and like, how that guy in Colombia, was able to build a huge drug empire worldwide. Yeah, it's not like I want to build a drug empire, but there's a lot of sort of business practices about, distribution chain and value chain, and how you manage your whole, teams, and it could, deciphering information up the chain, sort of like military tactics. I love sort of the military stuff, like whatever it's called, way of war, or whatever it's called. Those are sort of military tactics. I kind of like some of those books. But just to recap, the last book that I actually read, cover to cover, and
Okay.
there was a 3 series of this thing. When I was really young, I probably like 18 or 19, and it's like a fantasy, one of these fantasy warrior fantasies, like half elf,
Okay.
half I don't know, some weird thing in a fantasy world on a fantasy planet, and he wakes up in the desert one day and he doesn't know who he is, and he's got to, do this journey to find his dad, and kind of thing. But there's 3 series. And I read all these books, a series cover to cover, nonstop. I was so hooked because this guy, this half elf or whatever, had sort of a multi personality disorder. But
Okay.
inside of himself, he had different characters, and they're all different flavors of a warrior. Like one was really good with a sword, one was really good at, like, espionage, one was really good at hiding and being deceptive, and like 007 style. And it had all these personalities inside of him that he didn't know until he became into a situation. Like, he went into this bar and it got really heated, and he got into a fight, and one of his personalities, which was like this crazy fighting warrior, came out, and he beat everybody up and got away, right? But he didn't know he had that capability until he was put in that situation under stress. And so I really enjoyed that, because it's like, you never know what someone's capable of doing. They might seem, I don't know, they might seem somehow, but when you put them really under pressure, or you corner them, or you put them in a situation where they have to make, critical decision thinking, right? Where it's down to the split second, like, you need to know now, right? And you need to action now. I think all of us have that capability. I think we can all sort of, lift the car up off the baby, right, and show like an incredible amount of strength, whether it's mental or physical, or doing things that you never thought was possible because you're in that situation. I think we all have a little bit of that capacity, and it really made me understand that, I'm not just, I don't just wake up in the morning, have my coffee, do a, boring day, and then I get home, kiss my wife, and go to bed. Like, I don't want that life. I really want to show that I have capabilities that, are there, and I want to put myself in those stressful situations on purpose to get them out, right? To push my boundaries, to make me think of new ways to solve problems, to, just to excel at everything I can for as long as I'm alive. And I think a lot of that book, really sort of ingrained that sort of, you can do better, or you can succeed if you really focus and, get that, spur energy to go beyond and stay until 3 o'clock tonight to get this app out for the client on time tomorrow morning, right? Those are the moments where you just go beyond what's sort of rational, and you achieve things that are almost impossible when you're in that situation. So I think that was very defining in my life.
Do you remember the name of the book?
The Nomad. It was called The Nomad. The first one, I think it was called The Nomad, and then the other one was like The Outcast. You know, it had all these weird names because each sort of phase in his life, you know, as adolescence and teenager, and then older as he got closer to finding his dad. You know, they had like The Outcast was the first one. I think The Nomad is traveling around, and then at the end, I don't know what it was. I think it was actually the warrior. You know, he was finally the warrior.
Okay.
So,
But it still it holds true to the hero's journey.
the hero's journey,
Basically
absolutely, yeah.
is the classic. But here it's the multiple heroes' journeys.
It is, yeah. Yeah,
In one character.
yeah.
And Mihai, if people want to reach out to you, where should they go?
So I have my LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn, Mihai Draghici. I think I have a photo, you know, wearing some sunglasses. I look pretty fly.
For a white guy.
Yeah, fly for a white guy, exactly. And then of course, Pay by Face, Mihai at paybyface.io. It's my most active startup, and you know, paybyface.io. You send any sort of message to anywhere in that domain, I'll get it. So, yeah.
I'll add contact details, and anybody listening in can check the show notes to get in touch with Mihai. And do that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mihai.
Thanks, guys.
Peace.
Have a good one.
That was today's episode. Tune in daily. Rate, like, subscribe, and share, please. Oh, you can find further info and materials in the show notes on techyleadership.com, including links to the guest book recommendations.